Hi guys, all 50K of you. So welcome back to my channel. Unless you're new, then hi and welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jasmine Zade. I'm an artist manager, music business student, and I make music industry and pop culture videos here on Jasmine Zade if you want to stick around for more in the future. For today's video, we're going to be talking about the recent criticism that has been surrounding Dua Lipa and her onstage presence and her performance abilities. I think this has been a conversation that's been long running over the past few years, especially as we watch her evolution as a performer and talk about the ways that she's changed as a performer. But the conversation has been pretty amped up lately because she's back on stage all the time on her Future Nostalgia tour. So I've been seeing people talk all over, especially TikTok, about Dua and her performances. I've seen so many clips and so many pictures. So I thought this would be like a good little thing to cover on my channel because it also gives me the opportunity to kind of talk about double standards in music and all the things surrounding what it takes to be a good performer, quote unquote. We're gonna get all up into the conversation, but before we do that, I do just want to give a big thank you to Atlas VPN for again sponsoring this video. You guys already know that I stand by Atlas VPN as a service to protect your online identity. They're developed by cybersecurity and IT engineers to make the internet not only more accessible, but more safe as well. I secretly love to watch things that aren't listed on all the various streaming platforms, and it's really nice to have Atlas VPN installed and ready to go, blocking those pop-up ads because we know they're super annoying and nobody wants a virus on their computer that they spent thousands of dollars on in a manic state. But I don't like the pop-up ads, so it's nice to be able to watch movies like that anywhere that I want, knowing that Atlas VPN is kind of there to keep me secure and safe and get rid of all those pop-up ads and keep people from spying on my data. It's also nice because Atlas VPN is available to be used on multiple devices at once, so you can have it installed on your computer, but you can also have it installed on your phone. You just open up the app, pick the country that you want to browse from, and then your IP is hidden, your location is private, all sorts of good stuff like that. And you're free to do all kinds of things. You can view releases early by using a different time zone. You're protected from malicious pop-ups and malware. And you can also save money by using Atlas VPN when you're checking out. So I definitely recommend taking advantage of their deal. If you visit atlasvpn/JasmineZade, I will definitely also have that link in my description if you guys are interested in protecting yourself, protecting your identity, saving money, whatever it is you want to do with Atlas VPN. So yeah, link in my description, and thank you one more time, Atlas VPN, for sponsoring this video. I always appreciate it. But yeah, now let's just get started talking about Dua Lipa and her performance criticism and all the other things that I'm gonna ramble about in this video. So I don't want to dive too much into Dua's like career timeline and background because she is more than likely going to get an It Factor installment from me, and that's where all the background information will go. But I do want to start all this off by stating that Dua always, kind of from the start of her career, had this really weird reputation surrounding her performance abilities, especially when it comes to dancing. And this was definitely notable in like her first era as a musician. Things have definitely changed now, and that's what we're going to kind of talk about in this video. But most notably in her first era, she was always the subject of a lot of conversations and criticism surrounding how she performs. But from the start of her career, Dua was always kind of in the pop lane. That was something that she knew about herself and that she talked about. She signed with Warner Music in 2015 and saw some success, especially across Europe and most definitely in the UK with her first few like songs and projects. And these were songs and projects that were originally labeled as dark pop specifically, which I kind of for this video went back and was listening to a lot of her old stuff that I hadn't heard before. And I really like the dark poppy angle that she was going for in the very beginning. I think her music sounds pretty different in comparison now, but that's what she was doing in the beginning. She didn't really get a lot of mainstream attention and conversations stirring up outside of Europe and the UK until her single New Rules came out on her debut album and absolutely tore everything up everywhere all the time. It was like one of those singles, you know what I mean. And it was actually also her first number one, like the first number one single she ever put out. And then she also did the song One Kiss with Calvin Harris, which I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with because similarly it also blew up outside of Europe and kind of pushed her even more to the mainstream. At that point, when she released One Kiss, she was a pretty big star in European countries. She was like winning Brits and doing all these big festival performances at like big name festivals over there in the UK. And she started breaking records as well. So even though she wasn't like a mainstay outside of that bubble, she was still seeing a lot of success and starting to kind of climb up the ladder. But within this like chunk of time when she started working on her first album into releasing One Kiss and starting to get more attention, that's when performance wise she became the subject of like relentless taunting and conversation about her performance abilities, especially after her performance of One Kiss, where the meme was born. The Dua Lipa meme, and you all know the one. Yes, it's giving hips. It's giving hips and absolutely nothing else. This meme, though, was one of those things that's like everywhere, all over everything, and kind of stamped this bad performer image on her that was like very hard to kind of reverse because it was just so apparent in everyone's minds at that point. But if we like reverse a little bit before this performance and other performances like it, I don't think that her stage presence was that bad. Again, I did a lot of research before filming this video, kind of analyzing her evolution and the stuff that she was putting out in her earliest days. And earlier in her career, around 2015 and 16, I was watching her live performances and they didn't feel as awkward as they went on to later feel. Like she was doing very unchoreographed things, kind of just standing at a mic and moving around wherever the music took her. And I know some people might view this as awkward, but I just think it's so much less awkward than what we ended up seeing like down the road. It wasn't super forced. It was kind of just her singing her music and feeling her own music, and it didn't need to be anything much more than that. So when I was watching these performances, I was like, I don't hate it. She's singing something that's really suitable for her voice. She's clearly passionate about it. She's into it. And it was nothing that was like way out of her comfort zone. And I think that kind of thing just suited her. We've seen other stars in music do this kind of thing before, kind of like Lorde or Halsey, people more in like a little bit of an alt genre, but still kind of pop, especially because Dua was doing a lot of dark pop at the time, like I said. But we've seen other female artists kind of do the same thing where they're putting on a show, not a big, massive choreographed dance number, but they're putting on a show. They're feeling the music, walking around stage, corded microphone, whatever. That's the kind of vibe that she was giving me, a little bit more of an indie pop kind of thing. And I think it was working for her at the time. But then her debut album, which is just self-titled, rolls around, and all of a sudden it's so much more poppy, which that fact is kind of making me wonder what was going on behind the scenes and what kind of made this transition. Like, I just mean that I cannot tell if this was a shift that Dua welcomed and that she wanted, or if there was people behind the scenes, like her label or on her team, that were like, hey, you're getting so much attention outside of Europe now. You're about to hit a mainstream breakthrough. So maybe we need to make you more appealing to that audience. Maybe we want you to dance more and be more of a pop star. So then after her debut album, these songs were kind of, putting her in a place where she needed more movement and energy and dancing of some sort on stage during these performances and festivals she was doing. But this chunk of time is when that awkward, like very hard to watch attempt at dancing came along very frequently. Because she wasn't heavily choreographed. That's not the thing. Like, she was not going on stage and being given these massive dance numbers with all kinds of hard, very calculated choreography. She just had all of these like other dancers with her, and then she would be doing these light, like in sync, almost motion kind of things. Like, it was just like these small, random collection of different moves that went along with the music. Almost like her team wanted her to be the next big pop girl so bad that they were like, girl, you gotta move on stage. And she's like, but I can't dance. So they're like, okay, just do this then, And it didn't work, okay? Like, we can all admit that it did not work. It's just so funny. It makes me laugh when I remember, like, when I see these things, and her attempt, it just did not work. And like, that's okay. When you watch these performances, it just looks more like her body was trying to control her. It felt like a hard to watch attempt at selling a star when what she was doing did not seem comfortable to her or developed enough to be anything major. And awkward is just simply the best word for it. Like when I was writing my notes for this video, I just kept using the word, this is awkward, this is hard to watch. Because like awkward and random are the only words that I can think of to describe this attempt at trying to be like this big moving around the stage pop star. And it's not that she even had bad music, because that's definitely not the case. Like she had great music, she has a great voice, and she did have a great voice back then too. She's very talented. That's not the problem. These things about her just weren't coming across in her live performances. How talented she was and the work that she was putting into her music behind the scenes was not coming across in these performances. But the awkward, flaily, random in sync movements just like kept coming, and they kept coming bigger and bigger as she pushed more and more mainstream, almost like mainstream bait. Like they just kept adding dancers and more movements to perform and these things like that. And it wasn't getting any better. It was just hard to watch over and over again. Just in my opinion, looking back on her performances in that chunk of time during her debut album, it just felt so inauthentic. It did not look like something that girl wanted to be doing. It did not look like she was in it. It looked like bait. It's almost like they were sitting there like, ooh, look at all this attention that she's getting. We need to prove her to the masses. We need her to be a pop star. We need to add dancers and all this and make her do all these moves, when that wasn't something that was comfortable for her as a performance and an artist. And people noticed. Of course, people noticed. People talked all over the place, all over the internet. And that's kind of what left her with this like negative performance reputation and left her with this label of just bad performer. And just imagining that from her perspective is so rough. Like if I try to put myself in Dua's shoes, like imagine being this person who loves music and creating art, and you're making all these songs and you want to put it out to the public, but then you end up in turn having to kind of push outside what you want to do to appease that very public. And you kind of have to conform to what they need you to be to prove yourself. So you try to be what they need you to be to prove yourself, but then you just end up taunted and relentlessly shamed for your attempt all over the internet for years, because everyone's expecting you to reinvent and conform and reinvent and conform, and it's not comfortable to you. You can't do it, so you get made fun of. Like that just seems like such an exhausting cycle to me. Like I cannot imagine. And it clearly did make an effect. It clearly did leave something on her, because she kind of came back and changed and got better. There was an improvement. You can see the improvement. She said, there is no go big or go home. I'm going to go home, get big, and then come back, okay? Around the release of her single Don't Start Now, which is the first thing that she dropped off of her second project, Future Nostalgia, is when we started to see a shift in her performance abilities and the things that she was kind of taking on stage. The Future Nostalgia project as a whole just seemed to be the thing that she really wanted to use to kind of step into that, you know, pop icon image, the next it girl, pop girl kind of thing. And that really might be because of the pressure of the mainstream breakout. You know, she was just this huge performer in Europe before, and then she pushes out to all these other places and she's on the charts and people know who she is. So that could have, I'm just assuming, left a little bit of a pressure on her to kind of do everyone better with Future Nostalgia over her debut and kind of say like, okay, I'm going to use this opportunity to prove myself. And during the Future Nostalgia era that we're still kind of in, but especially in the beginning and during all of that, she still did stick with pretty minimal choreography. Like we still weren't getting big dance number. And I don't think we're ever going to get that, but it was still just like in sync group stuff, you know what I mean, to the music. But she was doing it with so much more like power and intent behind it than what we saw previously, than the things before that kind of gave her this bad performer image. She just genuinely seemed like she was having so much more fun with it too. She seemed way more into it and not just like throwing herself into these movements and letting her body control her, putting on much more of a show, like really going for that pop star image. And I vividly remember the internet conversations happening about her after her 2021 Grammy performance. Everybody all over the internet was like, damn, y'all really bullied Dua Lipa into being a better performer because of the way she proved herself with her Grammy performance. Like, everyone was really impressed with how differently she performed and how clear it was that she took the criticism and fixed it in the time that she wasn't performing. Not even just with dancing, though, like, a whole other thing is her vocals were really developed more live as well, which in part is just a part of being a performer in any sense. Of course, not even just a performer, like with anything that you're trying to be the best you can at, the more experience you have with it, of course, you're going to learn and grow and kind of do things better and improve over time. But her Grammys performance was just so much better. Like, if you play a video of her in like 2016, 17, whatever, and you put that next to a video of her Grammy performance, it's like, what happened to her? It feels like she stepped into some kind of machine and then stepped out and was a whole different person. And this conversation has been ramped back up again recently because she is now on her Future Nostalgia tour, and there's lots of videos and clips and footage coming out of her on the tour.
Moonlight, you're my starlight, I need you all night. Come on, dance with me.
So a lot of people are talking about Dua again. That's kind of why I said I wanted to film this video. Her looks for the Future Nostalgia tour, can we talk about that though? Oh my goodness, I've been blown away by the things that she's been wearing on stage, the looks that she's been pulling out. I think she's killer at that. She's one of my favorite pop stars at the moment to really watch for looks. She always looks so amazing on Instagram and on the red carpet and in performances. So anyways, the conversations happening right now, though, surrounding Dua and her performance evolution are really interesting because, on one hand, there's still people criticizing her. I've seen it all over TikTok and Twitter, people being like, she still sucks at performing. It's giving High School Musical, like, she's boring, all kinds of accusations like that. And then the other half of the conversation is really applauding her growth and acknowledging that she's gotten so much better and saying, like, she is the performer and holding her to this really, really high praise. So it's so crazy how sort of split it's been. In my opinion, though, I definitely don't think her stage presence is bad. Like, I don't think it's fair to sit there and watch what she's been doing since the second era and kind of just be like, it's terrible. It's not terrible. You know what I mean? It's not terrible, especially considering what it is now compared to what we started with. I definitely don't think it's terrible. I do kind of understand if it's like not for you, that's a whole different story. But I don't understand the she's still absolutely horrible, because I just definitely think she's gotten so much better. And I love these two tweets that I found talking about this. One of them says, Dua Lipa obviously worked her ass off to become this incredibly polished performer and true pop star and has been so fucking fun to watch. And the other one says, Dua Lipa is such a great example of how to evolve as an artist and in her case as a performer. Like, it's sad that people had to shame her for that, but damn, she has gotten so much better. At the very least, you can admit that the improvement and the growth is notable, and that's a great thing. And I do think that some people who are still super unhappy with Dua are like demanding more and more and more, and also using comparison, solely comparison, as a basis for criticism, which isn't always fair to me, especially in music, because I feel like everyone has a different craft, everyone has a different area that they're good at, but that doesn't mean that every single person is going to be good at every single thing. So if you're criticizing Dua solely based on the fact that, oh, she cannot perform like blank, then it's like confusing, because just comparing as a means to criticize, especially considering her evolution, I just don't agree with it. I do think the main problem with certain opinions on Dua's evolution is this demand for women in music to constantly be reinventing themselves over and over again, and the expectation that they're always putting on a big show.
The female artists that I know of have reinvented themselves 20 times more than the male artists. They have to, or else you're out of a job. Constantly finding new facets of yourself that people find to be shiny. Be new to us. Be young to us, but only in a new way and only the way we want. And reinvent yourself, but only in a way that we find to be equally comforting, but also a challenge for you. Live out a narrative that we find to be interesting enough to entertain us, but not so crazy that it makes us uncomfortable.
Like, it's definitely not a crime at all to want someone to put on a good show or to put effort into their show. The question is, why does the public demand so incredibly much from women, especially in comparison to men? And I loved the conversation that was happening about this topic. I feel like this topic was really amped up after the Grammys, like I was just talking about, because of how many female performers went on the show and just like went all out. And then you have people like Harry who go up there and sing with a mic and a few backup singers, and that's it. And it's an easy A plus, oh my God, incredible show stopping performance, you know? And then women have to go up there and go through the whole 9 yards just for media praise and media approval. I love it when it's the point in my video where I get to complain. But Harry's not the only example. I'm not trying to like target and bully him or whatever. Ed Sheeran is another one people always talk about. Just hop up there with a guitar and his voice, and it's an easy A plus gold medal bright star for you. But then a woman has to go up there and put in the absolute most to even measure up to that performance Ed just gave. Female artists have demonstrated some of the most elaborate shows that the music industry has ever seen. Backup dancers, extreme lighting, the whole 9 yards. But have you ever noticed that most male artists barely move when they're on stage? Male artists more often than not perform by just standing behind a microphone on stage, while on the flip side, female artists are expected to sing while physically performing, whether it be dancing or in Ariana Grande's case, riding a standing bicycle at the 2016 VMAs. This concept is in fact demonstrated in numerous award show segments where female artists take on the role of entertainer of the night, while male artists become more of a wholesome heartthrob. Mediated pop, which is true. Like they're just expected to stand up there, you know, look good. Mediated pop in the same article goes on to talk about how One Direction and Fifth Harmony were created by the same people. Even One Direction and Little Mix were created and kind of managed and stood up by the same people, but also highlights the drastic difference between them and what's acceptable for them to do on stage. The One Direction boys really truly can and are free to just go up on the stage and do nothing, run around, dump drinks on each other, act like idiots, and sing a song, and it's show stopping. But then like the Fifth Harmony girls, the Little Mix girls, you know, we got this costume and the intense lighting and props, like this whole elaborate dance, like they have to put on a show to measure up to, you know, anything else. The double standard women face in the music industry in almost every category is astounding, considering the progress society has made with gender roles. In every show, video, and song, female artists are expected to do no wrong. They must look sexy enough to draw in audiences, but modest enough to be a good influence for younger generations. They must perform elaborate shows, but not so that every other follow-up performance will be lackluster. These unrealistic expectations of female artists are limiting any destruction of gender roles, instead enforcing these harmful ideas into younger generations by feeding it to them through the susceptible platform that is music. So it's like, y'all claim that you bullied Dua into performing better. Is that a great thing? Because sure, it's great that she wanted to do better for herself and wanted to do better for her audiences. And she also showed what it means to improve and work towards a goal. But there's also the fact that she kind of had no choice because of the behind the scenes people, the label, whoever, and the public. Of course, you have to have talent in the first place to make it and to, you know, be good in this industry or whatever. I'm not saying people should just be lazy and go on stage and throw anything on there and not put in work just to avoid feeding into double standards. I'm not saying that at all. I am saying that you can be talented and put on a good show, a great show even, without the immense pressure of going humongous and being perfect at this one thing that maybe isn't your craft. Which kind of takes me back to my earlier thought of wondering if this was something that Dua wanted for herself, or if there was just all this pressure, especially from her label and stuff behind the scenes, for her to force her foot into the shoe that doesn't fit, you know, of being this huge pop star and like dancing and all this stuff that she wasn't originally comfortable with. Obviously now she's a better performer, but I just wonder if that improvement was brought on by the pressure and expectations of everyone else. And it's also such an interesting conversation because there are like mainstream pop stars who go on stage and they don't have these big elaborate dance numbers like Billie Eilish. She doesn't dance, but then you think about her shows because she's on tour right now too, and she still does have this big elaborate production and she's like moving all over the stage, going all in, going ham to put on a show even though she's not dancing. We've had conversations before where it's like it's nice that there's people reinventing what it means to be a pop star like Billie or like Lorde, but yet people like Billie are still under the pressure as a woman to put on a show, even if they're not a like traditional pop star, which kind of makes my point that to me personally, what makes a good show is passion and energy. Like for me, that's what it has to be about. I can always tell when a performer goes on stage and cares about what they're going to leave on the stage, even if it doesn't have to be this like big elaborate thing. If you really love the music that you're making and you know how to connect with your audience, then that's going to come across in whatever performance you give. So that's what I think makes a great show. So I just think at this point, it's a matter of allowing people to put on a show that's best suited for them and not putting on a show that they're putting on because it feels like that's what they're supposed to be doing. But anyways, I do think that right now Dua kind of seems happy with what she's doing. She looks happy. She's like always proudly posting about the things that she's doing. So that's great. And I'm happy for her. I think she's a much better performer. And if she's happy with what she's doing, then that's amazing. And maybe she really did just want to learn to dance better from the jump, but I still stand by I think it was a pressure thing from society, from her, like, whoever. I just think she felt pressure to get better, but now if that's what she likes to do, then I think that's great. And it just played out very interestingly. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today in this video. I'm really excited to read your comments and kind of hear your takes on the double standard of performing in the music industry. So let me know what you guys think. And thank you so much for watching. Check out my description box for that deal from Atlas VPN. My Patreon is also down there if you want more videos and extras. And you can also use my Google form to submit topic requests if you have any ideas for me. I hope you're all doing absolutely amazing, drinking your water, thriving, and I'll see you in my next video.